He was a milk boy from rural Oklahoma, a kid who grew up milking cows before sunrise, bottling the surplus, and delivering it door to door on a dirt road just to help his family survive the Great Depression. He had no family wealth, no powerful connections, no inheritance waiting for him. When he finally scraped together enough money to open his first store, a landlord took it away from him just as it was becoming successful. You would think that a boy like that, born broke, raised poor, and stripped of his first big win, could never build the most dominant retail empire in the history of the world, right? Well, Sam Walton did exactly that. He became the richest man in America. He built Walmart, a company that today generates more than $600 billion in annual revenue and employs more people than any other private company on the planet. He revolutionized the way goods move from manufacturer to consumer, reshaped the entire concept of American retail, and did it all from the small towns that everyone else had written off as too small to matter. So how did a milk delivery boy from Kingfisher, Oklahoma, become the greatest retail entrepreneur in American history? To find out, we have to go back to 1918. March 29, 1918, Samuel Moore. Walton was born in Kingfisher, Oklahoma, to Thomas and Nancy Walton. It was not a glamorous entry into the world. Thomas Walton was a farm loan appraiser, a man who spent his days negotiating with desperate farmers during a period of crushing economic anxiety. And the family moved constantly from Oklahoma to Missouri, from one small town to the next, chasing whatever opportunity Thomas could find. Sam would grow up understanding, in his bones, what it meant to not have enough. That understanding would follow him for the rest of his life. You see, the Great Depression hit the Walton household the way it hit millions of American families, not all at once, but slowly, grinding them down. Nancy Walton was a determined woman who refused to accept poverty quietly. When money got especially thin, she started a small milk business right there in Kingfisher. And it was Sam's job, this skinny kid, not even a teenager yet, to wake up before dawn, milk the family cow, bottle what was left over after the family had their share, and then drive it around the neighborhood to sell it door to door. This wasn't an after-school activity. This was survival, and Sam did it without complaint. But here's what's remarkable about that. While most kids his age were sleeping in, Sam Walton was already learning the fundamentals of retail. He was learning that if you go where people are and you give them what they need at a price they can afford, they will come back to you. He was learning that service matters. He was learning that hustle is its own form of intelligence. He just didn't know yet how far those lessons would take him. And it didn't stop with the milk. Sam would also take on a newspaper route for the Columbia Daily Tribune, delivering papers before school every single morning. Then, somewhere around age 7 or 8, he started selling magazine subscriptions, not because someone told him to, because he saw an opportunity and went after it. I mean, this kid was 7 years old and already running multiple income streams. Most adults can't say the same. What strikes me most about Sam Walton's childhood is the discipline it forged in him. Think about what it takes to wake up before sunrise, in the cold, every single day, and go do work that nobody sees and nobody particularly thanks you for. Think about what that does to a person's character over years and years of repetition. You either break under that kind of grinding obligation, or you develop a tolerance for hard work that becomes completely natural to you, as natural as breathing. Sam Walton developed that tolerance. And when he eventually built a company, he brought that same pre-dawn energy to it. There are stories of him showing up at Walmart distribution centers at 3 a.m. just to talk to the workers, to understand what was happening on the ground. That wasn't a public relations move. That was just who he was. the family eventually settled in Columbia, Missouri, where Sam attended the University of Missouri. He wasn't just a student there. He was a force. He was president of the senior class, captain of the basketball team, and a member of the football team. And while he was doing all of that, he was working. He waited tables in exchange for his meals. He ran a newspaper delivery operation that, by the time he graduated, he had grown into a business with 50 paper boys working for him. At the University of Missouri, Sam Walton wasn't just earning a business degree. He was building a business. The difference mattered enormously, but there was a flaw emerging in Sam Walton that would follow him, challenge him, and occasionally cost him dearly. He was relentlessly, obsessively focused on learning, on watching what others did, and adopting whatever worked. He was not the kind of person who invented from scratch. He was the kind of person who took the best idea in the room and executed it better than anyone else. Some people would call that a lack of originality. Critics would say it for decades. But what those critics missed was that Sam Walton's ability to absorb and apply the ideas of others wasn't a weakness. It was, as it turned out, his single greatest superpower. He graduated in May 1940, and 3 days later, not weeks, not months, 3 days, he started as a management trainee at a J.C. store in Des Moines, Iowa, making $85 a month. This is where things get interesting, and not necessarily in a flattering way for young Sam. By most accounts at J.C. Sam Walton was considered one of their worst trainees. Not because he wasn't smart, he was clearly brilliant. But he was awkward with paperwork. He struggled with the administrative systems. He had trouble following the structured corporate procedures that J.C. demanded. His manager apparently pulled him aside more than once and suggested that retail management might not be the right path for him. Let me be very direct here. The man who would one day build the largest retail company on earth was told, to his face, that he wasn't cut out for retail. Big mistake. But Sam Walton wasn't paying attention to the paperwork. He was paying attention to the floor. Every single day, he was watching how the store operated, how merchandise was displayed, how customers moved through aisles, how prices were set, how employees interacted with shoppers. He was absorbing everything, filing it away, building a mental library of retail knowledge that he would draw on for the next 50 years. When World War II interrupted his retail career and sent him into the Army Intelligence Corps, that library came with him. During the war, Walton supervised security at aircraft factories and prisoner of war camps across the country. He married Helen Robson on Valentine's Day, 1943. She was the daughter of a prominent banker and rancher from Claremore, Oklahoma. Helen was sharp, grounded, and had an instinct for what was real and what wasn't. She would become one of the most important people in the Walmart story, though history doesn't always give her the credit she deserves. It was Helen's father, L.S. Robson, who would loan Sam the $20,000 that would make everything possible. September 1st, 1945. Sam Walton walked into a Ben Franklin 5-and-dime franchise store in Newport, Arkansas, and wrote a check for $25,000. $5,000 of those dollars were his own savings. The other $20,000 came from his father-in-law. And just like that, the Walton retail empire had begun. It was in a 5,000 square foot store on a main street in a small Arkansas town, selling everything from ribbon to hardware to penny candy. Now, I want you to understand what Newport, Arkansas looked like in 1945. It was not a retail hotbed. There was already another 5-and-dime right across the street, a sterling store run by a man named John Dunham who had been there for years and had built a loyal following. Everybody in Newport assumed Dunham's store would crush this newcomer. Nobody gave Sam Walton a chance. and Sam Walton could not have cared less. He went to work. He stayed late. He came in early. He walked the floor constantly, talking to customers, asking what they wanted, what they could not find, what prices they were paying elsewhere. He sourced merchandise directly from manufacturers wherever he could, cutting out the middleman to keep his prices lower than the competition. He brought in new products. He made the store feel exciting and welcoming in a way that Dunham's store simply did not. And it worked. In his first full year of ownership, sales increased more than 45% to $105,000. The following year, sales climbed again to $140,000. The year after that, $175,000. By his fifth year in Newport, Sam Walton was moving $250,000 worth of merchandise out of that little store every single year. He had beaten John Dunham. He had the #1 Ben Franklin location in terms of sales and profits across a 6-state region. He had done what everyone said was impossible. Newport, Arkansas was his, or so he thought. Here is where Sam Walton's story takes a turn that would have destroyed most men. Because here is something that Sam had done when he first signed the lease on that Newport store. Something that would haunt him for the rest of his life as the single greatest business mistake he ever made. He had not secured a renewal option on the lease. It sounds like a minor detail. It was not a minor detail. The landlord, a man named P.K. Holmes, had been watching Sam's success with great interest, great covetous interest, because Holmes had a son who wanted to run a retail store, and Sam Walton had just spent 5 years turning this particular retail store into one of the most profitable small-town five and dimes in the entire country. So in 1950, when Sam's lease came up for renewal, P.K. Holmes sat down across from him and delivered the news. He would not be renewing the lease. He was reclaiming the store for his son. Let me let that sink in for a moment. Sam Walton had taken a struggling store generating $72,000 a year and turned it into a $250,000 a year powerhouse. And now it was being taken from him. Just like that. He would later describe this as the low point of his business life. He was devastated. He cried. He had a wife, children, a life built in Newport, friends, community, everything a person builds over 5 years of working and living in the same place. And now he had nothing, no store, no income, nowhere to go. Sam Walton wrote in his memoir that this was probably the low point of his business life. He felt sick about it. He felt foolish, because the truth was, he should have known better. He had been in retail long enough to understand that the lease was as important as the merchandise, and he had let himself get comfortable, let himself assume that success would be enough to guarantee renewal, and paid the price for that assumption in the most painful way possible. And yet, this was the moment that would define everything. Because if P.K. Holmes had simply renewed that lease, Sam Walton might have spent the rest of his career running a single successful five and dime in Newport, Arkansas. He might have been comfortable, prosperous even, and completely anonymous. The refusal to renew that lease forced Sam Walton out of his comfort zone and into the wilderness. And in the wilderness, he found something much bigger. May 9th, 1950. Sam and Helen Walton arrived in Bentonville, Arkansas, a tiny town of about 3,000 people in the Ozark Mountains, and opened a new store they called Walton's 5 and 10. The town was so small that people in the retail industry laughed when they heard where Walton had gone. Bentonville. Nobody went to Bentonville. There was nothing in Bentonville. Which was, of course, exactly the point. Sam Walton had learned his lesson in Newport. This time, he negotiated long leases. This time, he secured renewal options. This time, he was meticulous about the paperwork that had tripped him up as a J.C. Penney trainee. And this time, he started expanding. He opened a second store, then a third, then a fourth, each one slightly different from the last, because Sam was constantly experimenting, constantly absorbing ideas from wherever he could find them. He became legendary for his competitive intelligence operations. He would walk into rival stores, and I mean this literally, with a yellow notepad, and just start asking the employees questions. How do you organize this? What's your best seller? How do you handle inventory? People thought he was eccentric. What he actually was a learning machine. He had no shame in borrowing a great idea, and the retail landscape of the 1950s was full of great ideas just waiting to be borrowed. One of those ideas would change everything. In the late 1950s, discount retailing was beginning to emerge as a new force in American commerce. The concept was radical for its time. Sell goods at dramatically reduced prices, keep your margins thin, and make up for it with enormous volume. Sam Walton encountered this concept and felt something click. He understood it intuitively, the same way he had understood the milk route as a 7-year-old. Give people what they need, at a price they can actually afford, and they will come to you. Every time. He explained the logic himself in a way that was so simple, it almost sounds obvious in hindsight. Say I bought an item for 80 cents. I found that by pricing it at $1, I could sell 3 times more of it than by pricing it at $1.20. I might make only half the profit per item, but because I was selling 3 times as many, the overall profit was much greater. That's it. That is the entire Walmart business model right there, explained by the man who built it. Sell for less to sell more. And the math, when you actually run it, is extraordinary. He went to the Butler Brothers franchise headquarters. They ran the Ben Franklin stores he was operating, and he pitched them his idea. He wanted to open a discount store, a big one, a store built on the principle of selling for less to sell more. The executives at Butler Brothers listened politely and then told him no. They did not believe the model would work. They were committed to the traditional franchise approach. They were not interested. Sam Walton would later say, "Aren't I glad they didn't accept the idea because I was forced to build our own team and program." He was glad he had to do it himself. July 2nd, 1962. The first Walmart Discount City opened its doors in Rogers, Arkansas, just 15 miles from Bentonville. Sam Walton was 44 years old. He had been in retail for 17 years. He had survived a Depression-era childhood, a war, the theft of his first store, and the rejection of his best idea by the company he worked for. And now, he was finally doing it his way. Walmart was underway. The store was not flashy. It was not beautiful, but it was cheap. The prices on everything were lower than what customers had seen anywhere else. And in the small towns of rural Arkansas, where money was always tight and choices were always limited, that was not just appealing. That was revolutionary. I want you to understand something about what Sam Walton was doing in 1962, because the retail giants of the era certainly did not. Sears was the dominant force in American retail, an empire so massive that in its heyday it accounted for 1% of the entire US gross domestic product. Kmart had also opened its first stores in 1962, the very same year as Walmart, and it was targeting cities and suburbs with populations of 50,000 people or more. Target launched the same year. The big players were all fighting over the same ground, the big cities, the suburbs, the dense population centers. And Sam Walton was out in the middle of nowhere, opening stores in towns with 5,000 people, 6,000 people. Towns that Kmart, Sears, and Target did not just avoid, they actively dismissed as too small to be worth the trouble. That was their catastrophic mistake. In those small towns, Walmart was not just another store. It was the store. It was the only place within driving distance where a family could buy everything they needed at a price they could actually afford. Sam Walton was not competing for customers. He was creating customers. He was bringing discount retail to places it had never existed. And those places, those overlooked, dismissed, supposedly too small to matter towns, were hungry for it in a way that nobody had anticipated. By 1967, Walton had 24 stores with annual sales of $12.5 million. Not bad for a milk delivery boy from Oklahoma, but he was just getting started. The late 1960s brought a challenge that would test the Walmart model in an entirely new way. Because growing 24 stores is one thing, growing them efficiently, keeping prices low, maintaining quality, that is an operational nightmare. The supply chain that had worked fine for 5 stores was buckling under the weight of 24. Merchandise was arriving late or not at all. Prices were creeping up because the buying power was not there. And Sam Walton knew with absolute clarity that if he could not crack the logistics problem, the whole thing would stall. His solution was audacious and, at the time, considered borderline insane. Instead of relying on wholesalers and distributors, he would build his own distribution infrastructure. He would construct massive regional warehouses that would allow Walmart to buy directly from manufacturers in enormous quantities and then distribute goods to its stores through its own trucking fleet. No middlemen, no markups. Just direct, efficient, high-volume purchasing that would allow Walmart to keep its prices lower than any competitor could match. The investment required was staggering for a company of Walmart's size at the time. Walton was betting the entire operation on a logistics strategy that the industry had never seen at that scale. His bankers were nervous, his advisors had doubts. But Sam Walton had done the math, and the math told him it would work. In 1970, Walmart went public. The stock was offered at $16.50 a share. It was not the most exciting initial public offering the market had ever seen. But what happened over the next decade and a half made it one of the most consequential. Because the capital raised by going public allowed Walmart to build out that distribution infrastructure on a scale that no competitor could match, and the compounding effect was almost incomprehensible. The distribution centers went up, the truck fleet grew, the buying power accumulated. And as Walmart's scale increased, its ability to negotiate prices with manufacturers increased with it, which meant prices in the stores could come down even further, which meant more customers, which meant more scale, which meant more buying power. It was a flywheel, and once Sam Walton got it spinning, it was nearly impossible to stop. From 1977 to 1985, just 8 years, Walmart grew from 190 stores to 800. Annual revenues exploded, and the competitors who had dismissed small-town America as too small to matter were suddenly looking at their own numbers and feeling something very unfamiliar: fear. Kmart tried to respond, but Kmart was built on a fundamentally different model: urban locations, higher cost structures, and a reliance on brand-name merchandise that did not leave much room for the kind of price slashing that Walmart practiced. Sears, the colossus of American retail, was even slower to react. Their leadership looked at Walmart's numbers and convinced themselves it could not last, that the small-town strategy had a ceiling, that real retail happened in real cities. They were wrong on every count. Meanwhile, Sam Walton was still visiting stores. His own stores, his competitors' stores, any store he could get into. He was still carrying his yellow notepad. He was still asking questions, absorbing ideas, looking for the one thing that could make the operation better, faster, cheaper. In 1987, Walmart installed the largest private satellite communication system in the United States. linking every single store directly to headquarters in Bentonville. While competitors were still doing inventory by hand, Walmart knew in real time what was selling where, could adjust orders immediately, and could spot trends before anyone else in the industry. This is the part of the Sam Walton story that I think gets underappreciated. Yes, he had a great idea. Yes, he worked incredibly hard. But the thing that truly separated Walmart from every other retail operation in America was that Sam Walton never stopped learning. He never reached a point where he thought he had figured it out. He never got comfortable. Other companies got comfortable. Sam Walton got curious. But here is something I want to be honest about. Because this story is not just a clean, triumphant march from milk delivery to retail empire. There was a moment, a genuine crisis moment, where everything Sam Walton had built was at risk of collapsing under its own ambition. In 1974, Walmart had grown fast, maybe too fast. The company was carrying significant debt from the rapid expansion of its distribution infrastructure. Interest rates were climbing. The broader economy was heading into a severe recession triggered by the oil crisis. Sam Walton's bankers were calling. His debt load was heavy enough that serious people in his organization were having quiet conversations about whether the company could sustain this pace of growth, or whether it needed to dramatically slow down, or even sell off assets. The man who had lost his first store to a landlord's greed now faced losing his entire company to the mathematics of leverage. He had bet everything, his family's future, his employees' livelihoods, the promise he had made to every small town that had welcomed a Walmart, on the idea that scale and low prices and volume could defeat any obstacle. And now the obstacle was the debt that scale required. Every morning, Sam Walton would come into headquarters knowing that there were people on Wall Street and in bank boardrooms who were looking at his numbers and wondering if he was overextended, wondering if the small-town discount model had hit its ceiling, wondering if the smartest move would be to sell or restructure before things got worse. Can you imagine being in that position? You have spent your entire adult life building this thing. You have walked away from a Newport landlord with nothing. You have proven every skeptic wrong. And now you are sitting across from bankers who are telling you, very politely, that the dream might be bigger than the balance sheet can support. Sam Walton did not retreat. Let me be very clear about that. He made the case forcefully and relentlessly to his board, to his bankers, to anyone who would listen, that the model was right, that the numbers would work if you gave them enough time and enough scale to work. The answer was not to slow down, but to be smarter about how you grew. He negotiated with creditors. He tightened operations. He pushed his team harder than ever on cost efficiency. He personally visited stores to identify waste and eliminate it. And it worked. By the mid-1970s, the financial pressure eased. The flywheel kept spinning. And whatever doubt had existed about whether Sam Walton's small-town discount strategy could scale to the size of a national enterprise was answered, definitively and permanently, in the numbers. At 1985, Forbes magazine published its annual list of the richest people in America. And at the top of that list, for the first time, was not an oil baron, not a Wall Street titan, not the scion of a great industrial dynasty. It was Sam Walton, a man who had delivered milk as a boy, a man who had lost his first store, a man who had been told by the executives of a variety store franchise that his big idea was not worth backing. The richest man in America. He held that title for 6 of the next 7 years. By the time Sam Walton died on April 5, 1992, after a battle with a rare bone marrow disease called multiple myeloma, Walmart had annual sales of nearly $50 billion flowing from 1,735 Walmart stores, 212 Sam's Clubs, and 13 supercenters. The company employed 400,000 people. The milk boy from Kingfisher, Oklahoma, had built an empire. And here is the thing that makes this story genuinely remarkable. The thing I want you to sit with for a moment. Sam Walton started with $25,000 and a leaking five and dime in Newport, Arkansas, in a town where nobody thought he would last. The landlord took that store from him. The franchise company rejected his best idea. The industry dismissed his strategy as small thinking, and every single one of those setbacks pushed him somewhere better. Newport lost meant Bentonville found. Rejection by Butler Brothers meant freedom to build Walmart without constraints. Dismissal by Sears and Kmart meant an entire nation of small towns left wide open, waiting for someone with the vision to see their potential. He once said, "I have always been driven to buck the system, to innovate, to take things beyond where they've been." And that quote tells you everything. Sam Walton was not a man who accepted the conventional wisdom about what was possible. He was a man who looked at the conventional wisdom and asked why. Why do stores have to be in big cities? Why do prices have to be this high? Why can't a small town boy build something bigger than anyone has ever seen? He also said this, and I think it's the most important thing he ever put into words. High expectations are the key to everything. Not ambition in the abstract, not wishing, expectations. The internal certainty that what you are building is supposed to work, is going to work, has to work, and the daily discipline to live up to that certainty. That was Sam Walton. Every day, in every store, with every decision, he expected more. More from his team, more from his suppliers, more from himself. And in the end, he got it. Which is remarkable when you consider where he started before the sun came up, in the cold Oklahoma air, carrying bottles of milk to his neighbors' doors, learning without knowing it the single most important lesson of his life, that showing up and serving people at a price they can afford is the foundation of everything. Today, Walmart is the largest company in the world by revenue. $600 billion a year, 2.3 million employees across more than 10,000 stores in 24 countries. The Walton family, through their holdings in Walmart stock, is the wealthiest family in the world, with a combined net worth that has exceeded $400 billion. What started with a milk route and a borrowed $20,000 has become the single largest private employer in human history. But Sam Walton's legacy isn't just about the numbers, as staggering as they are. It's about what he proved. He proved that the experts who tell you the market is too small are often wrong. He proved that logistics and discipline and genuine obsession with low prices can beat brand recognition and size and history every single time. He proved that the towns everyone else ignored contained millions of people who deserved better than what they were getting, and that serving them well was not charity. It was the greatest business opportunity of the 20th century. Sam Walton showed the world that you don't need to start with money or connections or a prestigious degree or an original idea. You need to start with the willingness to do the work before anyone else is awake. The humility to learn from every experience, good and bad, and the absolute refusal to let a setback be the final word. The milk boy from Oklahoma changed the world, and that, more than any revenue figure or Forbes ranking, is the thing worth remembering.